Well, it's a new day here and I'm gonna pick up right where we left off on the last video with this driver's side front fender. We've got some body work to do here. I'm gonna put some filler on this spot here to level it out. It's got some divots where I had to grind down the rust. And same spot here, it's got a little ding and I had to grind down to get the rust off of there. I'm gonna put a little filler on it. But before I do that, I'm gonna have to sand it down with some 80 grit to really make sure it's roughed up so that body filler will take bite. And I'm gonna just continue to work my way around the car. There's a lot of little spots with some rust and some paint that's flaking off that I'm gonna have to fix. So it'll be a slow process, but we're gonna keep moving around the car and hopefully get everything knocked out. I'm also expecting a package to arrive today, but it's not for the 89 CRX, it's for my 95 Civic sedan. So when it shows up, we'll probably jump over to that car and see about getting that installed. Wipe this down with some alcohol to make sure that any finger grease is off of here. And I've got a little scratch right here on the fender that I'm going to sand down with 320 grit. Okay, you can see right here where there's some rust forming here on this tab. I'm going to use this wire wheel and a drill to try to knock that down. There you go, most of it's off. Sometimes that works a little bit faster than sanding, that's for sure. Alright, since we're on this plastic down here, or this polyurethane side skirt, I'm going to step it up to 220. That way I don't gouge this plastic too much whenever I try to sand this smooth. So what I'm looking for whenever I'm sanding these chips are these feathered edges. You can see it's a really soft edge right here, but right here it's a hard transition. That's what you don't want because you'll see that in the final paint if you don't correct it. So you want to feather these out and make it a really soft, long transition. Alright, this here is on the driver's door. It's not as bad as that chip down there, so I'm going to step back up to 320. Well, our package came in, so what that means is we're going to transition off of the CRX and we're going to pull in the four-door Civic and see what this thing is. Well, it looks like the battery's dead. I knew since I had so many cars sitting around so long that the batteries may die, so I picked this guy up on Amazon. We'll see how it works. I haven't ever had one of these before. They seem to work pretty well, so let's give it a shot. Top Dawn Volcano 1500 jump starter. It's pretty compact. Should work pretty well though for this little CRX. It looks like it comes 100% charged out of the box, so we should be good. I'll plug it up right here. Alright, we'll hook it up to our battery. Negative to negative. Positive to positive. Alrighty, we've got power. Started right up.
Pick up the phone.
Well, you may have seen this car lurking in the background in some of my previous videos, but this is actually a 95 Civic LX that I picked up for 700 bucks. I really just got it because it was a good deal. I found it on Facebook Marketplace and it was semi-local, so we ran down and grabbed it. And I plan on using this for a work car, but I do want to clean it up, put some extra little bits on it to make it nicer. My first car was a 94 Civic sedan, very similar to this one, but it was white. I'll throw some pictures up right now so you guys can take a look and see what it looks like. I had a JDM D15B in it and I put the Grady kit, turbo kit on it. It was a really fun car. I went through several different sets of wheels, as you can see here. But it was a really nice car. I had the JDM Ferio spoiler, and if you take a look at this car, that's one of the first things I did on it was put this JDM Ferio spoiler on it. I cleaned up the hubcaps, put some EK side skirts on it, just like the white one that I just showed you. I've got an OEM front lip here, the EX Ferio front lip. Those are really hard to find. These are not OEM fog lights. They look just like OEM, but those are eBay fog lights. They're like 40 bucks. I mean, you cannot beat that. I've also got some corner lights that I'm gonna throw in here today. I'll show you those in just a few minutes, but the first thing we're gonna do is open up this box that I got in today and see what it is. With this being a budget build for my work car, I picked up the Maxpeedingrods strut tower bar for the 92 to 95 EG. I believe this also fits some of the DC Integras and EKs. It was really affordable, and we'll see how the install goes. Well, there's definitely nothing special underneath the hood here. This is the factory D15 V7, 106 horsepower. It's got 181,000 miles on it. It is a 5-speed, so that's one good thing, but the 5-speed that's in here is the LX transmission, which is a really long geared transmission. It's more geared for fuel efficiency. But it does make a really good work car. I will slowly transition that into a project car, but for now we're gonna do a little budget build on it. Just like the old video, this has got two 14mm nuts holding this strut on. Okay, over here on this right side, I'm gonna have to move this wiring harness. It's a little bit in the way. Okay, there's a very similar issue over here. This wiring harness is a little bit in the way, so we're gonna have to move it and bend this bracket a little bit to get this base to sit flush along here. Looks like we've got one more thing to do before we get this fitted completely. We've got to pull these plugs out here where these actually, the bolts go. Okay, I grabbed a couple of 6mm screws to screw into here, so I'm going to go ahead and get these tightened up a little bit. Alright, I'm going to move over here and put these 14mm nuts back on. Move over here to the passenger side and get these started, and then I'll tighten everything down. Under the hood, I'm going to go ahead and swap out this air filter. I picked up a cheap one off of Amazon. I'll link it down in the description below. This was probably dirty, it's got a lot of miles on it. It's pretty dirty. Okay, the last thing we're going to do on the sedan is in this box here. I mentioned it earlier. Some new corner lights. JDM or European all clear corner lights. I actually got these from a guy in the Netherlands. He shipped them over here to me. You can see how these compare to the USDM ones. USDM ones have this large orange reflector. These do not. These just have an orange cap inside here where you put your bulb. It makes it look orange when it lights up, but there's no reflector in it. The only thing holding this on is one Phillips head screw right over here. One thing I want to do before calling this job complete is giving these corner lights a little bit of a polish. So I'm going to clean them off with some alcohol, make sure all the wax and grease is off of them, then I'm going to give them a little bit of a polish. I'm going to do two steps here. One step is going to be the 3M Perfected EX-AC compound, the number 1, 36060. I'll put a link in the description below for this. It works really well, I found. I'm going to use a medium yellow pad on a drill to do this first step. It already looks much better after that first step. Our next step is actually going to be the 3M Ultrafine Machine Polish 06068. I'll also put a link for this down in the description. We're going to change the yellow pad over to a white polish pad on our drill. We're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. We'll move to our white polishing pad. Okay, my final step is actually going to seal these lights up with some headlight lens sealer. This is just some Blue Magic headlight lens sealer. It's supposed to basically UV protect them from getting hazy again. So. Well, now that we're done with the sedan, I'm going to go ahead and pull it back out and get the CRX pulled back in. Alright, now that we got our EG sedan parts installed, I'm going to jump right back into body work. This body filler here is definitely hardened now, so I'm going to use 120 grit to knock it down and shape it up. Alright, if you look real closely here, you can see a couple dark spots. Now I've sanded down with a block, so whenever you see these dark spots, that means they're low spots. So I'm actually going to have to add a little bit more filler in these spots here to get it to shape up properly. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and move up to the other arch here and get it sanded down, and then we can come back and put another layer of filler. Okay, same thing on here. There's a little bit of a low spot right here, so I'm going to have to come back and add another layer. While that body filler sets up, I'm going to move on back here to the rear wheel arch. On this side skirt, there's some paint that was flaking off down here. So I'm going to go back down, or actually back up to 220 and get this feathered in. You can see that I'm chasing a crack right here. Every time I try to feather it in, it keeps moving along. It's because the paint is cracked, so I gotta follow it until I can get it feathered in properly. Moving on to the rear quarter back here. On this seam, there's some surface rust and the paint's starting to flake off a little bit. So I'm gonna take a wire wheel and try to clean all this up. Well, you may start being able to see why it costs so much money for a paint job. I'm not a professional and I'm learning as I go. I watched a lot of YouTube to learn how to do this, and I'm still making mistakes, and I'm learning from those mistakes. It may not look like we've made a lot of progress again, but it really just takes a lot of time and trial and error on these dents. You put your layer of filler on, you sand it down, you've got low spots, you got to do it all over again. And you do that until it's just perfect. And then you can move on to the next stage of sanding with a higher grit, and then finally moving on to primer, sanding, and then painting. But we're gonna wrap it up here tonight. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, moving around the car, fixing all these scratches and dents and rust, and just keep moving forward toward paint. We'll catch you on the next episode.